Good morning, everybody, or as I like to say, bienvenidos a todos. It is my absolute pleasure to be here this morning. My name is Angie Rivera Malpieri, and I am honored to serve as the chairman of the board for the Regional Transportation District. Today, I am really thrilled to be here as we experience a major milestone in RTD's 51-year history. You know, we started our search for a new leader at this agency. Little did we know that 2020 would place us in the middle of a global pandemic, and RTD, just like the rest of the world, would be challenged in ways that we never could have imagined. After a 4-month national search and 58 applicants, Miss Deborah Johnson rose to the top. It is not surprising. She brings more than 25 years of diversified, progressively responsible experience, serving most recently as the Deputy CEO of Long Beach Transit in Long Beach, California. She's held experiences on the executive level at Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, and the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. She's a top-notch professional, and I am proud that we are making history today by choosing the first female general manager and CEO in RTD's 51 years of service. She surely brings skills that will help us through ongoing challenges while we're having a vision of taking this agency forward into a new era. Along with her experience, I think when you meet her, you're going to see her charisma and energy that inspired all of us to choose her. You know, she's already had an extraordinarily busy day. She started this morning at 4 a.m. with meeting with employees at operations divisions, and she also had a virtual hands-on meeting with all employees at 10 this morning. I am so very excited to introduce her to you. Please welcome our new general manager, Deborah A. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Chair Malpieri, and good afternoon to all of you. As introduced, I'm Deborah Johnson, and I'm extremely excited and extremely humbled to come before you today and introduce myself as the General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of the Regional Transportation District. As stated, I happen to be the first woman, but let's be clear, it's my intention that it won't be the last. As I take on the reins and shepherd this organization over the course of the next several years, I believe I have a dubious responsibility to ensure that I work collectively with all the stakeholders, with our customers, and most importantly, with our employees to make this organization the best that it possibly can be. What I do want to do this morning is take a couple of minutes just to let you know a little bit about Deborah Johnson. Outside of the bio that you heard from the chair, let you know about who I am. I actually hail from Fresno, California. And one thing I'm proud about that in the sense that that's my first entree into the public transit arena. Being a young person, I relied on public transportation to get to school. Literally and figuratively, it was the vehicle that brought the haves and the have-nots together. It enabled me to be able to experience things that I might not otherwise have had the opportunity to do, meaning that I was able to go to different schools that have helped me propel forward. Throughout the course of my maturation process, going on to college, I relied on public transportation. And really what's interesting with me standing before you today, being a woman of color, more specifically being a Black woman, looking at how transportation helps to unleash people from the limitations in which they may have in life. Because I can say specifically, as you look at research that's been done by the Pew Research Center, 54% of transit ridership across the country are single mothers of color. And recognizing that oftentimes in this country, decisions are made by others that aren't in that demographic is extremely important to me, and I recognize that I have the responsibility to move us forward. But I recognize it's going to take a lot of people in which to do that because I cannot run this organization by myself. So over the course of the next 100 days, working in tandem with the chair and the members of the RTD team, I plan to ensure that I can evaluate and assess what I don't know, because in order to be successful, I have to be willing to listen more than I speak, and be willing to put my best foot forward so that we can collectively face the challenges that face us. More specifically, let's be clear, we are in unprecedented times. COVID-19 has brought things that we wouldn't think we would see in our lifetime. Recognizing that I'm a person in the people business and I enjoy being a servant leader, it's important to me that we are moving essential people to get them where they need to go. But I would be remiss not to recognize that we have essential employees that is making that a reality day to day. With the financial challenges upon us, recognizing there'll be tough decisions that are abound, but literally and figuratively, you cannot spell challenge without change. I encourage us all to be flexible and agile as we forge this road ahead, and hoping for the best and being optimistic that business unusual will become business as usual as we wait to see what we can do collectively as a region to ensure that we're moving people and getting them where they need to go when they want to get there. So with that as a brief entree, I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions you may have for me as I embark on this new journey as the new General Manager and CEO here at the Regional Transportation District.
Thank you very much, Deborah, and thank all of you for joining us. We will be taking questions through the chat area if you're joining us through the Teams link, or we can go ahead and take questions live from people who have called in. And so I would ask whoever might want to be up first if anyone is ready to pose a question to Ms. Johnson. Yes, Jackie, go ahead. Jackie from CBS 4.
Great. My first question is just how do you plan on tackling some of the delays that we've had recently? We've talked a lot about that, so how do we fix that?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
Jackie, can you repeat your question, please?
Great. My first question is just how do you plan on tackling some of the delays that we've had recently? We've talked a lot about that, so how do we fix that?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
Delays.
Yeah, I can repeat my question. Just how are you planning to tackle the issues we've had with delays, with the train delays and those issues? How do we fix that?
Okay, if I heard you correctly, Jackie, I believe you were inquiring about delays as it relates to trains, so I'm thinking you're making reference to service delivery and the delays therein. Okay, so first and foremost, what I need to do is ensure that I have an understanding of what our schedule is and what we are intended to deliver. I'm making an assumption here that you could be speaking in reference to missed service, and if anything, being a transit service delivery provider, we need to ensure that we have the optimal number of employees that match the optimal number of train sets in which to deliver said service. So it's working in tandem, being able to peel back the layers of the onion and discern what might be the optimum service levels that we should be delivering, and making sure that if we can't meet that, that we're communicating out in such a way that we're managing our customers and constituents' expectations.
Thank you very much, Deborah. There is, just for those of you who are listening in, there's a slight delay. As you know, when we're doing these meetings virtually, oftentimes there's a delay in the audio. And so we will go to Ed Sealover next from the Denver Business Journal. Ed?
Doing these meetings virtually, oftentimes there's a delay in the audio, and so we will go to Ed Sealover next from the Denver Business Journal. Ed?
Great. Well, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I know that the RTD has long had a debate over the provision of services to those who are absolutely RTD dependent versus the provision of services to kind of suburban communities that tend to pay larger amounts of their way. How do you view that debate? I mean, where do we need to concentrate our resources right now?
All right, well, thank you very much for the question. And if anything, recognizing this is day one, I'm going to have to assess these issues. But on the face of it, how I would address that question is that we do have different elements of service, and some of it's core service, meaning that we have higher service delivery models in certain aspects of our service area. I think what we need to do is assess the optimal service delivery model and ensuring that we are optimizing state taxpayer dollars in a way in which we are delivering the services that will capture the vast majority of ridership that we're anticipating to maximize the assets that we have as we go forward. So recognizing that it is a trade-off, we have to figure out where we can balance those and meet in the middle to ensure that we have optimum service models to serve every facet of the great service area that we have.
Deborah, next up in the chat area, we have a question from Allison Borden with Colorado Public Radio. And Allison is asking, where do you see yourself and RTD in the next 2 to 3 years?
So, very good question. Considering that there's a lot of unknowns, I would anticipate that we would leverage the experience that we've gained in this unprecedented time to ensure that we're providing a service model that works in the best interest of our ridership and as well as optimizing the resources we have. So, simply put, I would like to ensure that we're at a place once we weather this storm whereby we are a mobility option for individuals and be the one of choice. So throughout the course of the various aspects we've done with our comprehensive operations analysis, which you may know as Reimagine RTD, using that as a backdrop, trying to optimize a service model that we have so we could really benefit those that need to utilize our service and those that don't, be introduced to the vast aspect of our services and programs, because basically I think holistically as we look at reducing our carbon footprint, using public transport is the best way in which we can do that, as we see with the advent of climate change and other environmental factors that have come to plague us in recent times.
Okay, if anyone wants to ask a question, we ask that you ask it through the live chat area. That will be most efficient. I know some of you have had a little technical difficulties, and some of you are just calling in and are not through the Teams meeting. So we're happy to direct you to the chat area if possible. Deborah, one question that we've been asked a lot as we all were waiting for your arrival, we had several questions from the media on what you were really seeing as the priorities for you to address right away.
Very good question, and thank you for posing that. I think, if anything, the things that we need to address right away are how we are basically being able to operate in this environment in which no one in our generation has seen. And I think, if anything, it's ensuring the safety and the health and welfare of our frontline employees and our customers that are utilizing our services. And so basically being flexible and agile with how we go about delivering said service, and being open to new ideas and continuous improvement as we forge ahead. Because one thing is for certain, we don't know what we don't know, and that's what this pandemic has showed us. So if anything, repeating what I said with an emphasis on being flexible and agile, I think is one thing for certain that we need to take into account with all that we do going forward.
Okay, we have another question from Ed Sealover with the Denver Business Journal. RTD has a responsibility to build a train to Boulder County, or does that promise need to be reassessed?
Very good question, and a fair question is that. As you can imagine, with me coming on board, I've been asked that a lot, and recognizing that all this came to fruition back in 2004, and 16 years has elapsed. I always think it is great to look at something through a new lens, and perhaps working in partnership and collaborating with all stakeholders to discern how we go about doing that, recognizing that there is a belief that a promise was made. I believe that it is important, as we look holistically at a region, that we provide connections to get to and fro. But I think, if anything, having a refresh to decide in earnest the best course of action to get there is what should be top of mind for all of us.
Next question, Deborah, is from Andy Bosselman, who's a freelance writer. So I will read verbatim Andy's comments. Ms. Johnson, as a former San Franciscan, I'd like to welcome you to Denver. I'm a freelance opinion columnist at the Denver Post. Last month, I called for disbanding the RTD elected board of directors in favor of an appointed board. I've written about how current structure of the board is set up to fail, and I'm afraid it will also set you up to fail. The current structure gives disproportionate power to suburban districts, which has emphasized providing low ridership service to sparsely populated areas and caused ridership to decline. This comes at the expense of service-denser urban places that could increase ridership. Do you have any interest or ability to address the problems of the current board structure? That's a lot to unpack, Deborah, but that would be about the RTD board structure.
Right. Appreciate that question. Recognizing that there's a lot of different governing structures as we look at policy boards. And in the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to work for a myriad of them. Having held from the Bay Area, as indicated, that I worked early in my career as a government relations manager for the Bay Area Rapid Transit District that's directly appointed by a constituency as well. I've had the opportunity to work for others that are appointed elected officials, and I've worked for community boards and joint powers authorities. So recognizing all of that as a backdrop, I believe, if anything, when you have a policy body, that they do have an obligation to set forward policy, and me as the CEO have an obligation to work in tandem from an administrative vantage point and carry that forward day to day. At this juncture, it would be premature for me to opine on whether I think that is optimal as it relates to me just coming into the area. But one thing's for certain, I think we all have to be in lockstep about how we go about delivering what's been set forth in the charter that created the RTD, and recognizing that if it was an appointed board by elected officials or a community board, there still is that responsibility to set forth policy and govern with all due respect for the interests that we have put forward by the taxpayers as a whole.
Thank you, Deborah. Next question is from John Murray with the Denver Post. And John is asking, Deborah, what is the latest financial plan for the next year in terms of the number of union and non-union staff reductions? And are there any further changes under consideration for the budget before next week's board adoption? What are your thoughts on the plan that they have worked out? This would be for the financial plan and the staff reductions, Deborah.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, and I believe it's a fair question. Recognizing that I've been on the payroll since 4 a.m. this morning, I am rolling up my sleeves and delving deeply into that. When I was in the recruitment process, I said I would have a briefing on the financial plans that we had going forward, and recognizing that there's been a myriad of change and fluidity with that as we've seen adjustments with the economy and the projections put forth by the lead school. So recognizing that I just spoke in my last response about the policy body, the board will be looking at something during the committee tomorrow. And basically, I have a big binder in my office that I plan to study with all due intention this evening to acclimate myself. So as it relates to specific numbers, I'm not in a place at this juncture in which to opine, because I have yet to have that knowledge base in reference to doing so. But rest assured that we are working, and me specifically, working in the best interest of our employees, working in the best interest of our taxpayers to maximize dollars that we do have afforded to us so we can optimize on the efficiencies in reference to delivering service. And keeping in mind that I pride myself on being a person in the people business, with there being a reduction in force, please recognize that whatever will be done with will be done through a lens of dignity and respect for our employees, because they're valuable to us, and recognizing that I'm optimistically being hopeful that perhaps in the near future, going down that path, we may have an opportunity to reclaim some of those employees and bring them back into the RTD family.
Deborah, in this morning's employee meeting, you were asked what your leadership and management style is, and that may be of interest.
Sure. Well, I pride myself on being a participatory leader, and what that means is I can't run this organization by myself. It takes a team of people. We're all individuals, but collectively we come together and we work as a team. And all of us are contributors. It's very analogous to a puzzle. When you look at a box top cover of a puzzle box, there's a picture there. If you're missing one piece of the puzzle, you're not going to have that complete picture. Recognizing that puzzle pieces come in different shapes and different sizes, it doesn't devalue that puzzle piece in sum. So the vantage point from which I come is that I have to engage, I have to lead, and model the behavior. And if anything, I have to be accountable. And I pride myself on being truthful and transparent and operate with integrity. And I have a couple of teachable points of view that have come to fruition over the course of my career and my personal experience. So with that, I believe in closed mouths don't get fed. Meaning, if there's something to say, speak up, be engaged, be a part of it. Bad news doesn't get better with time. What I mean is, if there's a problem, raise the flag. I want to hear it. Also, growing up, my mother would share with my sister and I, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you want to eat, you have to open your mouth. And that means, hey, all of us are in this together. I want to hear what you have to say. Sometimes I may not like it, but a good leader is willing to take that input, because I don't know what I don't know. Also, failure isn't final, it's feedback. And so basically we're going to make mistakes, but we have to have the willingness and openness to learn from said mistakes so we can chart a new path. That's evident. I'm standing here with these lights shining on me, and how many times did it take Thomas Alva Edison to invent the light bulb? And then last but not least, lean in. Sit at the table and lean in. And what I mean by that is you have to be engaged. Don't be in the periphery. Don't sit around the perimeter of the room. Sit at the table and lean in. And really that resonated with me over the weekend, recognizing that 52 years ago on Saturday that Shirley Chisholm was the first black woman elected to Congress, and she would always say, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring your own folding chair. So that's who I am from a leadership vantage point.
Thank you, Deborah. And Jacqueline Quinn from CBS 4 is asking, what does it feel like to be a woman of color taking over this agency?
Well, in light of what transpired on Saturday, it feels good, but it also feels like this should have been done a very long time ago. But recognizing I have a responsibility, that I can't be the last. I got to make sure that I don't step on the glass, because we got to sweep it up, because there's going to be more coming. So I feel as if I have been bestowed a great honor. It doesn't fall lightly on me, and I'm going to be the person my mother raised me to be, and be the ultimate leader that I possibly can, because I know it's in me, because that's who I am.
Okay, we're going to ask if there are any other questions, if people want to put it through the YouTube chat or through the chat on Teams. I don't see any more questions coming in through the chat. I will say, folks, we appreciate you having the wherewithal to hang in there with us. We had planned to do this news conference socially distanced and masked outside of Denver Union Station, but the recent health orders changed that plan. So we also had to be flexible and nimble and change our plan. So we do appreciate you weathering the technology that is at our fingertips. And I would ask you, Deborah, if there are any closing thoughts or comments that you would like to make as your first initial introduction to our media partners.
Thank you very much for that, Pauletta. And first and foremost, before I close, I want to thank staff for assembling all this today. When I had the opportunity to engage during the course of me transitioning into this organization, I made it clear that it was important to me to engage, being a person in the people business, and they ensured that I was primed and ready so I could be out and about at 4 a.m. this morning and meet with the valuable men and women of the RTD team, also to put together a virtual all-hands meeting and then this press conference. So with that, what I want to share is that I am committed to engaging with as many people as possible, recognizing that I am a continual learner, an evergreen learner, that I need to familiarize myself with the area, having come in and know I'm not a carpetbagger. I have moved here and I'm willing to put my all into making this organization the best that it possibly can be. I look forward to engaging with our stakeholders, with our customers, and most importantly with our employees so I can recognize the path on which we're traveling. So, welcome to engage, and please recognize that it's going to take me some time to get up to speed, but the one thing for certain, I'm willing to listen. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that is going to be my plight, to make sure that I'm listening more than I speak over the course of these next 100 days. After that, we'll see what happens. But that was unjust. But seriously, I look forward to working with all of you in the region. I look forward to sitting down with the media, having editorial boards, because I think that's important. I pride myself on being highly communicative, and so we need to engage and have that dialogue.
Thank you, Deborah. And I do want to make sure that you all know we are going to have the tape of this news conference on our website very shortly. And so for those of you that want to go back and listen again, you will have the ability to do that shortly. And again, we thank you for joining us. We thank our board chair, Angie Rivera Malpieri, and our new CEO, Deborah Johnson.
Thank you.